So this is going to be a very science fiction-y type speech, and maybe something y'all hadn't quite heard before, because I Googled it and I couldn't find anything on it, so I had to actually do original research. But my title is The Quickening of AI in Senior Living. And what I mean by the quickening of AI is that, I don't know if y'all have picked up on this. Oh, first I want to shout out to Mike. Mike is the most stand-up guy in the entire world. Mike's had me out here 3 times. And what's interesting is he always calls like right after I've paid my kids' college tuition. It's like he knows that I'm sitting there choosing between Jif and, Peter Pan peanut butter for the week. And he's like, hey, you want to come speak? And I'm like, yeah. And I always try and think up something new topic-wise for him. And that's what I've done this time, and it's on AI. And what's interesting is I got this mail just a couple of days ago. It was a beta for this thing called Lex. And Lex, I signed up for it so long ago, I actually forgot about it. And what Lex is it's an AI. Have any of y'all used AIs that kind of complete your sentences for you? You know how Google Docs will sort of finish up your sentences for you now? Well, this will write like paragraphs for you. And occasionally I write really bad pulp fiction, and I'll use an AI for that just to kind of help move me on. But this AI from this company, Lex, this AI is wound up being a little bit different, and it took me in a little bit different direction for this speech, because I thought, all right, what would be kind of cool is to have the AI tell me what I'm going to speak about. So I asked the AI, what should I speak about at an event on AI and senior living? And this is what it came up with, right? And so what I'm going to do, and that's exactly, I just copy pasted it. That's exactly how it came up to me. And so I'm going to circle sort of around those topics. But there's 2 main things I want to get across this morning. I'm going to go ahead and give it away. My main things are AI is proceeding really fast now for inexplicable reasons. Nobody can figure it out. And I think it's going to be a godsend in certain ways for seniors that we haven't thought about. We've thought about the ways that it can help them in a senior living community, where it can help out with things like logistics and staffing and stuff like that. But this is something totally different that occurred to me. But first of all, let me go into what's going on with AI right now. There's kind of dumb AI, which is like when you're on an airplane, the autopilot, right? That's a sort of AI. But the AI everybody's looking for is something called Generalized Artificial Intelligence. And there have been 4 criteria set up for this, but really the most important criteria is that this generalized type of artificial intelligence can make a 750 on the SAT and explain to you how it did it, right? So that seems to be sort of the benchmark. And there's a video game called Montezuma's Revenge, apparently, that's part of. Does anybody know what that video game is? Do you really? Is it hard? Is it? Well, there was another game that they got an AI to play, and the AI actually it was like Pac-Man, and the AI learned that it could just jump the walls. Rather than circle the walls, the AI figured out, hey, I can just do this. So in other words, AI is coming up with wacky ideas, and we can't quite figure out how it's doing this yet. And that's what I want to talk about. This is a misplaced slide, but I'm going to leave it in here because it refers to the end, where I think in senior living communities, seniors are going to get extremely used to VR, and it's going to be a super important part of their life. I know it seems kind of odd to, kind of put these big things on your face, but I think seniors are going to get used to it quick, because the benefits of it are going to be wonderful, and I'm going to explain it to you why. But first, I want to talk about today's election day, as Mike said, and there's an election market called Predict It. And have any of y'all looked at that? Where it says like the predictions of whether or not the Republicans are going to take the Senate or who's going to win the Georgia race. And people are actually betting their own money. So the predictions have some validity because people are using their money. And in February 2020, they thought that the question was asked to this group of nerds. There's a nerds sort of predicted. And they asked them, when do you think generalized AI is going to happen? So at the beginning of 2020, 2.5 years ago, the consensus agreement is we won't be there until 2053, all right? And then you fast forward to 1 year, to January of 21, and the community predicts, oh, it's going to be 2035. All right, remember my talk is called The Quickening. And if you go to essentially now, they're saying we're going to have generalized artificial AI, artificial intelligence in 5 years, right? So within 30 months, the median prediction of when we're going to have AI that I just like to call spooky AI, where it's just doing spooky things. Spooky AI, the median has moved by 25 years that fast. And it's like, how in the world has it done that? Within the last 6 months, the median has moved by 14 years. So what in the world is going on that's making this happen? These AIs, when you see them, how many of y'all have heard of GPT-3? Okay, you're going to be hearing that a lot. The generalized AI model that people are using now is called GPT-3, and that's a bunch of gobbledygook right there, but it uses deep learning to produce human-like text, and it does that with 175 billion parameters. In other words, things that are fed into it. It learns from those parameters. And GPT-3 is got a little spooky. One time I dumped all the text from all the James Patterson novels into a model. They call it a transformer. So I dumped it all into a model, and all 175 books, or however many, he writes like a book a week. So I put them all in there, and I started writing a paragraph, and I started writing a chase scene, and by golly, if it didn't start writing a chase scene, that kind of sounded like James Patterson, right? Short paragraphs, the chapters were only 600 words long. It was kind of spooky. The only thing that I had dumped in there was James Patterson stuff, and it wrote like him. Well, they're dumping everything into AI now. I mean, literally everything but the kitchen sink. This is called GATO. This is from Google. I've got some notes on GATO. Google is it's a unified type of AI where you're not just putting words in, you're putting images in, you're putting robotic movements in. You can basically throw anything you want at it. It's just sucking up all kinds of artificial intelligence. And what's interesting is this is sort of the model for it if you look at it. On the left-hand side, you see you can just throw pretty much anything you want at it. And this is why when Space Daddy Elon, when he bought Twitter, everybody said he overpaid for it. I believe he underpaid for it because he paid $44 billion for it, I believe. If you read the terms of service of Twitter, not only does he own all those tweets, he owns all the direct messages. He owns all the images that were sent along with those tweets. He owns all the emotions that people were using when they wrote those tweets. He bought the biggest, and actually they call it this at Twitter, he bought the biggest fire hose of data. It's second only to Google, except this has more emotion than Google. I think that people are going to wind up seeing what a bargain Elon did because he bought the single most free and unfiltered source of AI raw data that he could have possibly bought. And now we're able to make some sense of it. And what's going on is you can throw words at it, but you can also throw pictures at it. And after a while, the pictures and the words start learning from each other and get more sophisticated. Different AIs will look at pictures and determine different things. But I'm beginning to wonder how much they're learning, how much the AI is learning from the words that are put in and how much it's learning from the pictures that are put in, once it has some sort of appropriate context for those pictures. I'm thinking that may be one of the things that is speeding things up. What makes me think that is this is Chinchilla, which is from DeepMind. This is also from Google. If y'all have seen me speak before, you've seen me talk about DeepMind, who that's the model, the AI model that learned the game Go from and played Lee Sedol in the tournament, and Lee Sedol's the world champion Go master, and it played him and beat him, and it beat him by Go trained itself by playing Go. DeepMind trained itself by playing Go against itself. And it came up with a move that no one had ever seen before, all right? And that's how Lee Sedol was defeated. Nobody had seen this move. The AI thought it up. Now in the next game, that got Lee Sedol thinking, and he brought forth a move that no one had ever seen before, not even the computer, so he was able to beat the computer. So one interesting thing about AI now is it's not only giving us answers, it's giving us prompts to enhance our thinking and come up with other answers, which sort of feeds into what I'm going to talk about with the senior living in 1 second. Google has yet another, they put out a lot of papers, Google does, and they put out another one on Palm, a Palm AI. And what's really weird about this is you just dump everything into it. You don't structure it at all, and it takes no training, all right? You don't have to put parameters in saying, this is the color blue, and do a regression analysis or anything like that. You just dump stuff in, and it seems to make sense of it. And what is quite odd about this is that Google's engineers don't understand how it works. They built it, but they don't understand how it's working so well. They don't have a clue. Something's going on. This is the reason I was not at the party last night, because I was up till 2 in the morning trying to figure out what is it that's going on. It's doing things we haven't seen before. It used to be in the prompting for AIs, you would ask this question like, Roger has 3 tennis balls, he buys 2 more cans, each has 3 tennis balls, how many tennis balls can he have now? And the AI would give you an output on that. Well, now if you look over, it gives you an output and then explains how it got that output. So without any training, it goes ahead and tells you the training that it did itself to come up with the output that it did. Fascinatingly, the guy that runs this project, at least fascinatingly to me, he said, we are simply predicting language. And this is where things get curious and sort of made me think. If you're giving an AI 8 billion parameters, it'll do arithmetic, it'll do very simple things. This is pretty much about what the Tesla parameters are. If you give it even more, if you fire hose more information in there, you give it 62 billion parameters, it can understand different languages, it can translate, it can answer questions asked, sort of like Siri. It can answer questions that are asked of it. But when you're really dumping data in there, it can do crazy, crazy things. I said that I was using it to help me write a really bad Pulp Fiction novel. And as I was writing it, it would write a couple of paragraphs, and then it also wrote jokes, okay? It started cracking jokes, which really freaked me out. And what they're good jokes too, better than my jokes. And what we're seeing is that it's doing things that are completely unexpected right now. It's solving problems in physics we didn't think it could solve. And what's really super scary, if you think about it, At first, it was being used, on the left, you see some programming in C, and what it does, the AI has translated it into Python, which is on the right. But now AI has gotten to where it's just gone ahead and started writing the code. So in essence, what you have is code writing code. And that is really going to speed things up and make things super spooky. And it's in some software packages now. You'll start writing Python, and it'll go ahead and complete what it thinks you want, and then go ahead and pull up libraries, Python libraries, that it thinks you're probably going to use. So I think you're going to see programming advance by multiple factors. And I've come to, I did something for Mike. Mike interviewed me, and I said this. I said, I basically decided, when I started looking at data, I was looking at electronic healthcare records. And people want super clean data in electronic healthcare records so that they can do things like when somebody comes into an emergency room, they can predict how long they're going to be there, or if they're probably going to come back. That's how AI is actually being used today. And people thought it had to be super duper clean data, but it turns out it doesn't need to be. It just needs to be more data. The more data you put in there, somehow or another, the AI is figuring it out. Well, how in the world is it figuring it out? So I've gone from where I think that research should be slow and rigorous, and you put everything in exactly as it's supposed to be, to where I think it ought to be fast and approximate, and just dump everything in so it can go ahead and give us some insights. But the question still remains, why is AI getting so smart so fast? And what I'm about to tell y'all is super wacky, but it's not original. I read it in a paper, but it made so much sense to me that I'm like, oh, this might be it. To backtrack a second, I showed y'all language before. Language has been around for about 100,000 years. That's how long human language has been around. Symbolic language, cubes, pyramids, those types of things, animals, symbols, have been around for a million years. So the stuff that's kind of baked into our lizard brains, we have some language stuff there, but when you're in dreams, do you dream in text or do you dream in symbols? You pretty much dream in symbols. And there's a guy named, I'm going to have to look up his name, Galloway, I believe. Yeah, nobody could figure out the benzene ring. This was in the mid-1800s. Everybody knew the benzene ring was central to all chemistry, but nobody could figure it out. And one night, the fellow named Auguste Galloway, all organic compounds are loops of carbon atoms called benzene rings, but nobody could figure really out how they looked or how they worked. And one night, Auguste Galloway had a dream, a very vivid dream of a snake eating its tail, and he realized that that's what a benzene ring looks like. It's a carbon pair, then the next carbon pair has two joinings, then the next one, then the next two. He thought that up in a dream. It was presented to him symbolically. It didn't present itself as the chemistry signal. It presented itself as the snake, as the symbol. And remember what I was telling you earlier about AI's learning from symbols. It's very Jungian, because Jung said that basically symbols are archetypal. I'm beginning to wonder if AI somehow is not learning from archetypes and symbols more than it's learning from contextualized text type things. That's the only thing I can think of that's making it speed up in the way that it's speed up. And let me give you two examples of how it's speeding up. OpenAI, which is partially funded by Microsoft, puts forth a lot of wonderful projects. One of them is speech recognition. And, how many in this room, how many of y'all use Dragon? Well, you use Siri for sure, but you use some transcription. This is like that on steroids. And remember how yesterday the fellow from Shazam was saying that he could pick up noise or music even though it was inside a bar, it could pick it out. Well, this does the same thing except with language, all right? And it's almost exactly perfect. It's amazing what it can do. Voice recognition used to be smart. Now it's insanely smart. And part of me is wondering, well, I know it's doing this because it's doing what yesterday the guy from Shazam, this was why I was rewriting my speech last night, the guy from Shazam was talking about they didn't have their breakthrough until they started viewing music and noise as spectrographs. And that's the same thing that this open AI does, is it views things as spectrographs. And in other words, it views them as symbols. And can that be part of the reason it's getting so good? And as an experiment, somebody gave it an ABBA song, because first of all, they sing with an inflection, right? They sing with an inflection, and they gave it money, 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 and it pretty much got it completely right on the first try. All right, and then someone else gave it Video Killed the Radio Star, which I don't even understand the words to. It's like Benny and the Jets. Has anybody ever really figured out what Benny and the Jets means? I haven't. I still don't know what that guy is singing about. But anyway, it's a miraculous type of voice recognition. And I'm thinking, and I'm going to repeat this later on, that voice is going to become the new graphical user interface, especially for seniors. I'll give you an example. On the shuttle up here from Augusta to Atlanta before I took my flight, there was a young lady sitting in front of me, and she had an iPhone, and she was probably college age, and she was working her iPhone so fast, I couldn't even follow her, right? The way she was swiping and swerving and doing all these things. She just did it for like 20 minutes straight. It was unbelievable. I still don't even know how to like go to another app when I'm on a phone call. I mean, I'll just look at it and not be able to figure it out and completely just give up. I'm older. I'm 60 years old, right? It's becoming a lot more comfortable now for me to work with voice than it is for me to try and figure out graphical user interfaces. When I do normal computing, I don't use a graphical user interface. I use a terminal. I go inside a terminal and use a program called Emacs, which is terminal-based and super fast because I never have to touch a mouse, right? I think, you know, an angel loses his wings every time you touch a mouse. It just kind of offends me. I went to Georgia Tech. I used to play Dungeons and Dragons with punch cards at Georgia Tech, okay? I'm like really, really old. But I think for seniors, they're going to have a marvelous, and seniors sometimes have trouble talking. I think this is going to be a marvelous tool for seniors to interact with computer type things that they wouldn't interact with before simply out of frustration, okay? And I want to also deal with the visual. This time last year, if you pull up computer AI generated art 2021, you'll just laugh because it's so horribly bad. It's really bad. But this year, Mike and I basically spent the entire month of August sending each other Midjourney pictures that we had drawn. How many of y'all have messed around with Midjourney? Oh, please Google Midjourney and start messing around. You'll lose 3 months of your life. It's just that awesome. Midjourney lets you do things like speak, please draw me a hospital at night in the style of ScoobyDoo art. And that's what you get. That's a very creative picture. Mike and I were sort of spitballing art for this conference right here. And I was like, show me a senior living center on the beach at the Bahamas. That's what it drew me in 30 seconds, right? And I did it with my voice, and it's very gratifying to me. I think it's beautiful. And for people that design senior living centers, all right, it at least gives you a jumping off place to start. But for folks that are senior citizens, to know that they can sit back and say something and have something that kind of beautiful and radical show up, or like this, these are some of the other ideas that popped up, senior living centers on a beach in the Bahamas. That's a wonderful thing. I was speaking to some architects in Los Angeles a couple of weeks ago, and I said, I gave Midjourney an assignment to draw a hospital waiting room as designed by Lloyd Wright. And that's what it gave me. That's relatively close, right? And what it is a great starting off point, but it's also very gratifying. It's a way of making art where I can just use my voice to ask for something and I get a result. I don't have any frustration trying to poke around on the screen, doing this or that, or not understanding the interface. Because of my voice, I understand the interface. This slide meant to say we were running out of staff in senior living facilities or communities, and computers are getting more powerful each year, ARs get more powerful every month. And what's interesting about that is a lot of people look at AI in terms of senior living communities as a way to save money, right, on staffing and things like that. It's not going to save you money because you're going to have at least a couple of people in there who understand how to work the technology. So you don't want to look at it that way. So what way do you want to look at it? And I'll tell you one way I think you should look at it. I've told you that I believe voice tech is going to be the graphical user interface for seniors. I'm absolutely convinced of this. Seniors are just going to get used to talking in their homes, and things that will happen will happen. I think also there's going to be specific domain-based learning in individual communities so that you can ask the computer, what is Betty doing today? And Betty from another part of the community, it could be like, well, Betty's joining the chess club today at 4 o'clock, or everybody can have their own little avatars. I think it can really promote things community-based. It's getting so smart so quick, because if you look at your senior living community as you would look at a Walmart, what is a Walmart really, okay? This is an overhead view of a Walmart. You have the inputs, the cars coming in. You have the outputs, the cars going out. What is it really? It's really a computer chip doing information, right? So if we go back and look at what the computer told me to talk about this morning, this is what it gave me, but 1 through 4 boiled down to just a couple of things. One is the buffering. This is what I think AI is going to be used for. It's 2 things. The buffering of loneliness in senior communities, because that is a big, big problem. But if somebody can immediately get in touch with their friends using a voice GUI, maybe putting on VR and talking to their friends, that's one way to alleviate loneliness. Another way is you get your daughter to read about 5 minutes worth of prose into a certain computer program, and then you can sit there during the day and have your daughter read you Lord of the Rings in her voice. Wouldn't that be nice to have your daughter read you Lord of the Rings or whatever your favorite book is? But especially what gets me going is creativity for seniors, because I think that's what gets seniors in senior living communities. They're not allowed to be creative. I would encourage y'all to look up this paper. It's out of Spain, and it talks about the importance of creativities in senior living facilities. And they define creativity as the ability and the facility to invent. Well, a lot of them don't have the facility because they don't know how to work. Like you said, Grandma, go do some filters in Photoshop and make something creative. She would have no idea what to do. But if she can say something simple that gives her some feedback right back like Midjourney does, that's good for her and will make her live longer. This was that thing I was just talking about. This is a friend of mine. She actually right now is probably about to go on stage. She is 65 years old, is a member of a very famous rock band in Europe, a very famous 80s rock band, and she's 65 and they just put out their last album. She's writing a book. She's doing creative things. Does she look 65 years old? I don't think she looks 65 years old. I think creativity and people being creative creative trumps sitting in a senior living facility watching Fox News all day. This is how you keep people young, and it's being made easier by AI. This picture I did right there, I said, show me from a Spanish street, La Sagrada Familia, in Barcelona at midday with a blue sky in the style of William Blake. And that's what it gave me. All right, it was just that one sentence, that's what it gave me. How gratifying would it be with a senior to do something and come up something with something as beautiful as that, or to say, show me the street I grew up on as it looked when I was 5 years old. That's absolutely possible right now. So when I'm saying, or you can say things like, make the pictures of my grandkids at the beach in 3D, and I'm going to look at them through the glasses. Or give me a symphony that jams up Bach and Radiohead. That can be done right now. Or show me the ballet La Bayadere, but let's see it performed on the beach in the Bahamas. That can almost be done right now. But what I'm saying is AI plus voice interface is speeding up to the point. Okay, how is it learning so fast? Don't care, doesn't matter. It just is happening, right? And what it's going to do is awesome for seniors. And I'm going to leave you with one slide just to tell you how frickin' smart it is. I asked the AI, I said, show Speaker Ron Galloway in retirement, okay? And this is what it gave me. Well, what's interesting about that is I live in Augusta, Georgia. So there I am on a golf course. My name is Galloway, which is Irish. That sort of looks like Ireland. To me, now, that's one of my favorite paintings. I did it in 15 seconds with a sentence. How gratified and happy and fulfilled would people in senior living communities be if they could produce something like that day after day for the rest of their lives? Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you, Ron.